Hello everybody, welcome to today's SimilarWeb webinar, Uncovering Data-Driven Strategies for E-Commerce Marketing in the US. Just to introduce myself, my name is Natasha Mosher. I'm a Thought Leadership Marketing Manager here at SimilarWeb. Today we're also joined by Ari Rosenstein. He's our Senior Marketing Director and Industry Expert for e-commerce.
Hi, Ari. Hi everybody, how are you? Welcome to the webinar. We're excited that everybody can join, and we have some really good content for you tonight.
So just to give you guys some background on what we do here at SimilarWeb, we turn data into insights that power business decisions. So our data comes from 190 countries and spans across mobile web, desktop, and mobile apps. What does this mean for you in e-commerce? It means that you can find competitive intelligence, including traffic metrics, search strategy, and audience behavior across devices. So how do we get all this data and bring it to you? We gain our insights from four main sources. The first is our SimilarWeb panel, which is the largest in the industry and it's the foundation for our insights. We also have our crawlers, which scan billions of sites every day to create a dynamic map of the web. In certain countries, we also supplement our data by partnering with ISPs. And last but not least, we have our learning set, where hundreds of thousands of websites have opted in to share their direct analytics with us. All these power the machine learning algorithms that drive the insights that you're going to see on the platform in the presentation today. We're going to show you how to discover who your competitors are, how to spot trends and seasonality in the industry. We'll show you how to find out where your audience is online, and as well as show you how to poach traffic through paid and organic search, optimize your mobile strategy, and also how to best reach your audience through mobile apps. So Ari, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. Thank you, Natasha. So let's start from the very top level. So you want to use competitive intelligence, market intelligence. The first thing you want to do is be able to understand your market share. So you need to get the bird's eye view of the market. So for this webinar today, we've chosen primarily e-commerce examples. I think there's some brands and some agencies on the line today, so I hope this is pretty relevant for you guys. In addition, I try to do a bit of a mix. We'll do clothing, which I think everybody can relate to, and then we have a bit of electronics at the end. But know that our data, like Natasha said, spans every website, every industry. So what I say here is applicable not only for shopping, but also for travel and publishing and any sort of digital market online. And with that, let's get into the bird's eye view. So I'm the marketer. I'm the strategist. I need to come up with a plan. I need to see who my competition is. And a lot of times that means, what are the top markets? I'm operating in the US. I'm operating in the UK. Where do I need to put my next dollar? Where can I start expanding? And with SimilarWeb, we can say, okay, here's the biggest market opportunities available in China, in Japan, as we can see here for the top countries in the shopping category, or who are the biggest players. And these lists, go fairly deep, thousands deep, so that you can understand what the competition is per market and even, per category. The other thing is, in today's world, in the digital world, we have multiple screens. We're on our PCs, at work typically. Everybody here, and myself included, we're digital marketers, which means that we spend a lot of time in front of our PCs or our desktops. It means that on the go, we all have our smartphones. At home, we probably have another screen that we're looking at. And so the device type actually shapes the content that we use, and it shapes the websites that we visit. So even in the shopping category, if I look at the top 10 desktop sites on the left side of your screen, I can see, everybody knows the Amazon, eBay, Walmart. None of these names should be too surprising. And on the right side, we have mobile shopping sites. And we see a slightly different list. We see that Target is Target here is actually much more popular on mobile. It's number 4 than it is on desktop, which means that maybe people are doing comparison shopping. Maybe a lot of the products that Target is carrying, are things that people want to buy when they're out and about, and they want to do a price comparison against Target. because they're the industry standard. We also see that Macy's, which carries a wide variety of clothing lines, and pretty much every brand that you could think of is also there. So if you're in a store, if you're in a different retailer, I'm guessing that because they're so popular in mobile, these are good examples of where people are doing sort of online price comparison through their mobile devices. So the device can really impact, the industry and the competitors that you need to face. So when we start talking about competitors, one of the most important things is discovering who your competitors actually are. And I think all of us know who our top competitors are. In the world of online marketing, there's a lot of different ways to look at your competitors because there's so many different channels for discovery. You've got your search, you've got referral, you've got affiliate, you've got display advertising. It could be that your emails are being spammed out by emails of your competitors for, customers who have subscribed to both of your stores. So what we do at SimilarWeb is we give you those tools and the data and the insights to discover all of your competitors across all of these different channels. So in this example, I've taken ASOS, which is one of the leading global clothing retailers. They ship everywhere. And we have what we call similar sites. Similar sites is our algorithm. It's based off of 18 different factors, including where the traffic comes from, the category of a site, the ranking of a site, if there's an overlap in audience, and we build an affinity ranking based off of all of these different characteristics so that we can see that, ASOS online is competing with Topshop, is competing with Next, is competing with Riverland, and our ranking is actually saying, these are the ones with very, very high overlap based on this sort of affinity. The next way we can look at your competitors is through the actual keywords, through the user intent. When we want to go and buy a pair of jeans, we'll go to Google typically. We'll search for Levi's or we'll search for jeans or the brand name. And what SimilarWeb does is we take a look and we create a pivot sort of on the data so that you can see all of the competitors that are competing for the same keyword for one of your reference companies. In this case, it's ASOS again. So we can see that on the left are all the organic competitors, and on the right are all the paid competitors, meaning that they are buying keywords that are also sending traffic to ASOS. So ASOS can kind of understand that, okay, there's two different lists here. Urban Outfitters is bidding very heavily on the things that are important to me, whereas Boohoo and Forever 21, Google is saying, hey, these guys have the same sort of content or the same sort of products and are showing their sites with a high degree of overlap to the pages that ASOS is ranking for within their own page. And the last thing is, and I think this is one of the most interesting things and one of the real powers of market intelligence, is you can look at consumer behavior. And we do this without actually knowing any personal identifying information. What do? We see the browsing session of a web surfer, and we aggregate that in bulk. And so what we've done with consumer behavior, and this is called audience interest within our platform, is you're able to look and see, okay, here's all the top sites that have an affinity to ASOS based solely on the ones that happen within the same browsing session that somebody visited ASOS on. So we can see, here on Urban Outfitters and Forever 21, not only do they have the overlap with, the paid or the organic search, that their actual audience is looking for clothes at the same time that they're looking at ASOS. So you can start to understand what's going on with your audience outside of your own site. Your internal analytics, your Googles, your Adobe Omnitures are going to give you the best insights you can possibly get for your own site. What you're going to get with the market intelligence is understand what your audience is doing outside of your site and be able to then create that sort of daisy chain and understand where everybody's going. And what I think of the coolest brand names, Nasty Gal, wasn't on any of those lists. And one of the coolest things about Nasty Gal, besides their very alternative cool brand name, is we see them have a high affinity to ASOS. So in the ever-changing and actually rapidly changing clothing market where fashion and trends, can change with what's cool, we see that Nasty Gal is actually up there with a very high affinity to ASOS. So ASOS, would be wise to keep an eye on them and say, okay, what are our customers looking at? They know the H&Ms, they know the Forever 21s, but here's this new competitor coming on, and they've identified, if they were using our data, they'd be able to identify who their up-and-coming competitors are by understanding where their audience is going. And lastly, this very, very cool feature that we just released recently, and I think is a real game changer for the whole market intelligence industry, is the ability to create your own unique ecosystem. So here, our researcher who made this, Natasha, she pulled together all of the top clothing sites, based off of a CMO or a head of marketing strategies perspective. So here's all the important sites that we want to track, and you can build that into a custom category. And when you do that, you're able to get the benchmark for your industry. So if ASOS is competing against Zara and Gap and Forever 21, we're able to show you the benchmarks of these top tier sites and weed out all of the other sites that are sort of competing at the lower level. So now you've identified your competitors. The next step is to find your audience online. And I think when going online, digital and performance marketers, care much less about who the audiences are, but where you can find them and how you can reach them through the digital channels. And what that means is you have several different channels to optimize to online. Unlike TV or print where you're buying sort of an audience, based off of implied metrics, and on digital, you know what you're doing. On organic or paid search, you're looking at intent by keyword. And because you can understand at a category-wide level how traffic is flowing, you're going to be able to see where the biggest opportunities are for your industry. If we assume that traffic represents potential audience size because that's how you market to these people, then you're able to look, per industry, and here we have the clothing traffic sources, and we have wedding industry where we've filtered down to just a specific niche of clothing, and we can see very big differences. So in the wedding industry, for example, half of all that traffic comes from organic search. And it's probably the brands, because the next biggest one is direct, that are driving that traffic. So 75% of that traffic is either somebody who knows a brand or somebody who's looking for a brand to buy, Vera Wang and things like that. If you were to dig into the keywords, which we will do a little bit later, you'll see that if I was a marketer in the wedding industry, I would overinvest in organic search because the payout, for display ads and for referrals is not going to be as much. And especially organic too, I think that when people are buying a wedding dress, they're probably less likely, because it's such a big ticket item, less likely to click on a paid search ad. Whereas if we look, at the clothing industry in general, if I'm buying a pair of sneakers, I'll take whatever price there is, and I'm more willing to click especially because the sticker price is lower, more likely to click on a paid search ad, and therefore we see why there's this sort of difference in the ratio of paid search. So if we take all of our channels and we spread them out on the table, we can see, all of the different opportunities per channel, and we can understand if there's a single player that's up there that's dominating traffic, or if there is, one player that's really pushing the needle. In this case, we looked at data from the summer, and we can see that LL Bean for paid search is driving almost 16% of the total market traffic for paid search. They are spending a ton of money on paid search and driving a huge amount of traffic. And then on social, we see that J. Crew is really pushing into that stream. And we can understand, okay, there's some very big players with very deep pockets. What's the best opportunity for me to start to compete? And Urban Outfitters is playing the field there, and we see that they're a top 6 here actually top 5 for every single channel. So they're really, really pushing their brand, not only organically, but also through the paid channels like paid search and display. They're making sure that their brand is everywhere, especially over the summer when we took this data. So we can benchmark all of this data against the competition to start to understand what is the right strategy for my company. So we see here two companies, one ShopStyle and one List.com. And we understand that, okay, this is the relative ratio of traffic. And so what is ShopStyle doing? ShopStyle has built a very strong brand. They rely, almost 25% of their traffic comes direct, which means people know ShopStyle. They bring a lot of traffic, almost double the traffic of List. And they rely a lot on referral traffic too, which means a lot of people come, especially from referral, might not find the right match with what they're looking for and tend to bounce much quicker. And this is reflected actually in the engagement. Whereas where you can see in the top right corner there of the screen that the bounce rate for ShopStyle is a good 15 percentage points higher than List. What do we see at List? List strategy is to build a very SEO-friendly website so that when you search for something in Google, you're showing that intent. Google is rewarding them by showing them very high, showing their links very highly ranked, and therefore the engagement is much higher because they rely a lot more on producing the kind of engaging content, and Google, part of the SEO algorithm, accounts for engagement. So it's rewarding List for having that engaging content by sending them more traffic, and List is then rewarded by getting their consumers to spend more time on their sites. The next step is to understand the trends, because the trends are what impact you on the micro or macro level. On the micro and macro level. If, for example, you see a drop in traffic, maybe from search or maybe from a specific channel, you need to understand, is it something that your team has done as part of an optimization process that's been good or bad, or is it part of a wider trend? Perhaps you grew traffic 10%, last week, but you totally missed out on what was going on. And the example of this here is for Gap. And we can see this is from May 2nd to the end of July, the start of the summer period in the U.S. We see there's one huge spike. And for those of you who are outside of the U.S., if you don't know, it's because this is Memorial Day. It's a 3-day weekend, a long weekend in the U.S., extra time for shopping, extra time to get people into the store, extra time that people are at home on their tablets, surfing, looking for deals, getting ready for the summer. It's typically the official kind of like first weekend of summer. And Gap had their big Memorial Day sale and drove a huge amount of traffic. So if other retailers are on this day, on Memorial Day, seeing maybe a 10% jump in traffic, we see here that, on an average day, Gap gets about 400,000 visits. They went up to 600, even closer to 700,000 or 800,000. They almost doubled their traffic that weekend, which means that, if you're not doubling your traffic over Memorial Day weekend, you're not playing the seasonality trends right, and you're leaving money on the table. Within the industry, we can take it from the macro, let's say, where the traffic comes from, down to the micro. We can see how consumers and how intent is changing. In SimilarWeb, everything is sortable by change. So we can start to see, over the summer, what are the top things that are trending over the summer. And if we look at the organic search terms, it's the LL Bean summer sale. It's a very popular summer sale. Searches over that period are up 3,000%. People are really looking forward to it. And then we see, the other things that are really hot during this period, including hair accessories for some reason, but also sandals, harem pants. I'm not quite sure what that is because I'm not a harem pants buyer, but I'll ask my wife later. And if we look on image search, it's even, I think, one of the best ways to understand what people are really looking for. They want to see the trends. And it's amazing what we see in image search. We see that like American Eagle and H&M, these popular brands, people are looking at image search to see what's fashionable. They're using Google image search as kind of a trend setter online. And one of the coolest things that I think, because of the huge Pokemon Go thing this summer, we see that Pikachu, people are wondering, what is Pikachu? I'm sure everybody doesn't know what Pokemon Go is or couldn't find a Pikachu of the millions of people or hundreds of millions now who have installed Pokemon Go on their phones. I didn't catch a Pikachu. What does Pikachu look like? There they are looking, and he's trending within Google image search. And you can see, how popular things are. T-shirt dresses in the shopping industry, joggers, all of these different things are trending, and people are looking for pictures and examples. So the next thing is you've identified your competitors. You've identified how to pick your audiences. You know what you're doing. You're starting to look at the tactics. You know what people are looking for. Now you know your competitors. You can start to do things at a tactical level to really make the data work for you. And one of the best things you can do is poach traffic from your competitors, because you know this is proven traffic. You know it's working well for them. So one of the top ways, to enrich your PPC campaign is with misspellings. They're very cheap keywords. They're easy to bid on, and you just have to know which ones are the most popular. So we're going to run a poll right now. And we've just opened the poll if everybody can look in their panel. How do you spell, the brand name Abercrombie? Okay, so 71% of our audience thinks that Abercrombie, the popular trendy clothing store, is Abercrombie, the top option. And now that I read it out, I actually see a few people changing their votes and switching to the top one. And why do we ask this question? Because we see that actually Abercrombie is a very, very misspelled brand name. And that we can see Abercrombie Fitch, Abercrombie, we can see all of these different misspellings are great ways for their competitors to bid cheaply on that brand name and get in on the misspellings. This is one of the more, I think, entertaining examples, but there's loads and loads of these for different products. I've seen Levi's spelled like hundreds of ways all over the world for, LEVI jeans. And this is a huge opportunity for PPC managers and for SEO managers. And we talked about like the competition in the market. Depending on how top or bottom heavy is, we can see, who are searching on these top big sort of brand keywords, such as like clothing. So when people search for clothing, who's showing up there? And we see Forever 21 has done an amazing job building out an organic site on building out organic traffic for the keyword clothing. And we can see who's paying money. Because we took this data from the summer, we see that LL Bean is actually buying a lot of traffic because they want to sell their summer clothing and their camping gear, and they're pushing their summer sale pretty hard over this period. The next thing you can do is you can start to say, okay, so we see that LL Bean is the top advertiser. What are they pushing besides their brand name? And we see on the left the keywords: backpacks, hammocks, dog beds, school backpacks. They're one of the biggest sellers of backpacks. And I think that the buying of backpacks probably starts in early summer for the campers and continues into the school season, like late August when it's back to school. But we can also see on the right is the actual, with this market intelligence, is the actual ads that match up with the keyword groups, with the ad groups. So if we see the keywords on the right for the top example, we have dog beds, and we see all the different variations of dog bed that are sending traffic to this ad. And not only in the ad, we can see what is LL Bean shipping. What is LL Bean, advertising and offering? And we see free shipping, no minimum order. So that's a very, very good insight, because if you're charging shipping after $25 and that's in your ad, you're probably losing clicks. If you are, not advertising dog beds on washable dog beds, if you're missing out keywords within that group, you're missing out on all of these opportunities. And the other thing you can do is you can start to understand what is your share of voice. What is your market share on a keyword by keyword basis? So now I'm taking a step kind of out of the clothing industry and into like the more mega retailer like Walmart versus Target, which I think everybody should be familiar with in the e-commerce industry. And we can see, for paid traffic share, Walmart's is just in blue there, dominating, some of the big keywords there, such as iPhone and Fitbit, whereas Target is kind of going after the college crowd with the mini fridge. They buy the mini fridge before they go back to school, and they know it's worthwhile to increase bids because they're losing clicks, they're losing traffic to the competition. The other thing you can do is you can start to understand your organic strategy. And one of the most amazing things about SimilarWeb is when you have your Google Analytics, because of the HTTPS, the secure protocol, what you lose is the ability to see the top keywords organically sending traffic to your site. At SimilarWeb, we see those keywords. So not only can you plan your entire organic long tail, you can understand which keywords are the most popular organic ones sending traffic to your site. So if we filter now for Walmart's, school search terms, of which there's dozens and dozens in our platform, we took the top 10, and you can start to understand what are people searching for, what are the top organic search terms that Walmart is ranking on, and what do you need to do to back to school sale, back to school supplies, school uniforms, all of these keywords with the organic estimated visits per search term are there within SimilarWeb. And then to take it to the next level, you want to define your strategy. So you've seen the organic, you've seen the long tail. What does it mean? How can you make it really, really applicable? So if we look at like two clothing retailers, Macy's and Nordstrom's, we see for the keyword in this example, dress. We see that on the pink there, Nordstrom, they're doing a very good job of making sure that they're relevant for all different categories of dress. And what does that mean? It means that, for homecoming dress and for cocktail dress and for bridesmaids dresses, they are getting a lot more organic traffic than Macy's is. Is Macy's not selling bridesmaids dresses? Of course they're selling bridesmaids dresses. Are they selling cocktail dresses? Of course they are. But maybe their site isn't optimized for those keywords at the sort of category level, and they're missing out on these opportunities, and that traffic is going to Nordstrom's. The other thing you can do is use the other forms of search. So we've talked a lot about search, regular search, and also image search. Image search is great, especially for certain industries. The technology industry, people want to see what the phones look like. The clothing industry, it's very important. People want to see what the latest trends are. We can see that if we look at Nordstrom's versus List, two examples that we talked about previously, on regular search, List is having a very hard time competing with the brand name that Nordstrom's has and the kind of the domain authority that they have. But List is a very visual site. They've done an amazing job at making sure that their images are indexed within Google and showing up in Google Images. So, sorry, wrong way. So we see here that List is able to find this niche and able to use and leverage image search to drive traffic, to drive sales, to drive results on their site. And we see, if we look for bomber jacket as the example here, List is showing up at the top of Google image search results. People are clicking on that bomber jacket. People are clicking on their images and going to their site and buying. So the last sort of section is discovering the partnerships and the outreach opportunities. So to find potential publishers, one of the best things you can do, and this is for your affiliate managers, this is for your PR people, your media outreach people, you can filter audience interest per category. So if I'm looking at footlocker.com, who are the top news and media sites that are covering, the products and the keywords and sort of, interests of Foot Locker customers? And I didn't know this until we started making this presentation, but there's an actual website called Footwear News and Hypebeast and they actually cover the shoe industry. And these would be amazing places for Foot Locker to start either advertising or running affiliate programs or reach out to the influential writers of these kind of journals in order to create demand and kind of like influence audiences to send traffic their way. And so if we look at like Finish Line, we see this really cool Finish Line versus Foot Locker. Finish Line was able to identify a great way to find a partner site. We see this huge jump in traffic. And where does it come from? Well, if we look at the referral traffic share in April, we see that it's mostly deals, brands deals, deal news, deal moon. In May, what they've been able to do is take a lot of that traffic from Slick Deals, promote their products there, and be able to be much more relevant to their audience and drive traffic that actually moves the needle. And we see the results here with the referral visits. So discovering where your brand is a very, very important part of online marketing, and you need to increase your social traffic. We see we're back to shop style versus list. We can see, shop style had this huge increase in social visits. From May to June, they really increased their social traffic. How do they do it? How does a company who's focusing on social, who's focusing on the clothing industry do this? What's the best sort of social network for them to grow this traffic? The answer is Pinterest. And we see here, shop style from May to June and from April to May on the bottom greatly increased their share of traffic from Pinterest, from being a third of their traffic to being half of their traffic. And what did this result in? It resulted in a huge volume more of traffic being sent to the site, being able to really move the needle in comparison to their competitors, in the social arena and in the fashionable sort of trendy arena. Pinterest is probably the social network that's important for the clothing industry. The next thing you can do is you can sort of peek into the messages of your competitors. Are your messages competitive? We talked about this before with search, but we can look, what are the different competitors, advertising? We see here that ShopStyle is advertising, a $2,500 outfit, dream outfit competition. They're trying to get people to click. They're trying to get people to visit. Here it's just shoes with no words. I think it's very, very smart branding. They're trying to push the styles. They're trying to push customization within their site on the right ad. And so if I'm List, I need to take a look at these ads and say, hey, is my messaging competitive? Is my messaging more enticing than these ads? Because this is what my consumers are being faced with every day in the market. And where are they being faced with it? Where is their brand? Where does it need to be? We can see where the different, ad networks are being promoted. And most importantly, we can see, which publishers are most important. So, we can see, ShopStyle is just dominating. They're on Facebook. They're on AOL. They're on Pinterest. They're on Baidu, which is the biggest biggest Chinese search engine, and List is not there. List is really missing out, and they're missing out on this brand opportunity to kind of overtake ShopStyle because they're not being aggressive enough. Growing your market abroad. So we have, referral traffic. You're sitting there, you're a marketer, you're focusing, okay, I need to grow my opportunities. I have this great example of what happened in Israel. It's a small market that was dominated by local brands, which was primarily the biggest one in the Israeli market was Castro. And we can see, before entering the Israeli market, when I'm talking about ASOS and Next now, the market was dominated entirely by Castro. So we see, here's the top sites in Israel. If you're Israeli, you know them. If you're not, you don't. But if you had SimilarWeb, you would know what the top Israeli sites are, and you would see where Castro, the local biggest player, is playing. So what could you do with market intelligence? You could come in here, you could better manage if you had a local agency doing this for you, or if you're sitting abroad, you would have enough insight to be able to start taking over the market and really change the landscape. And so this is after kind of entering the Israeli market. ASOS and Next, these huge players from the UK, are now selling clothes in Israel. They're advertising on the top sites, and they're really sort of making it much more difficult for the local players because they have the same sort of local intelligence, using market intelligence. So that kind of wraps up the section about websites. Now I want to talk about mobile engagement, because I think we're still figuring out as an industry, how do we do optimize for mobile? I think there's certain industries such as gaming and a bit of shopping, mostly with the classifieds, that are pushing the limits in terms of mobile advertising. But like I talked about before, there's this huge kind of behavioral difference between what's going on mobile and what's going on desktop. And that should impact how you're building your sites and how you're advertising as well. If we take a look at like Best Buy, we see that their mobile web traffic really outnumbers their desktop traffic now, that they get more traffic from mobile web, from those portable devices, than they do from desktop, which isn't much of a surprise that we spend more screen time now on our mobile devices. But what we see is like different popular items. So if we're looking at popular folders in Best Buy, we see deals of the day, laptop computers, and sorry, this is for desktop. This is a slight typo. And if we look here for mobile popular folders for people from searching for mobile, we see here mobile cell phones and major appliances. Why were cell phones visible here and not visible on desktop? Because if you think of the way that Americans, and this is U.S. data, would buy phones, we would see that a lot of people buy their phones from their local carriers. So they'll go to the AT&Ts, they'll go to the Sprints, and they'll see, is there a better deal at Best Buy? So they'll pop open their phone and they'll go to Best Buy. And the same thing with appliances. Appliances are big box items. You need to open the fridge, you need to see the ovens, you need to take the measurements. It's very difficult to buy online. So you're going to go to the store, you're going to go check out the other appliances, you're going to be at the Home Depots, and you're going to measure, and you say, hey, I want to make sure I'm getting the best deal. Let's whip out my phone. Let's make sure I'm getting that. So we see that there's usage is very different depending on device, and that also reflects in marketing, like I mentioned earlier. So taking a look at Best Buy this time versus Newegg, we can see that they both have very similar sort of category distributions. But if we're looking at the mobile web, we see this is what people are really looking for in terms of driving traffic, and that on mobile web, people are looking for slick deals. They're looking for Black Friday, Retail Me Not. They're doing a lot of coupon offers, and these are the biggest shopping sort of coupon sites, and this is all happening on mobile web. For mobile apps, what do we know about the market? With the top-level market overview, we see that apps are very, very competitive. This is something that I've seen continually with top apps for lots of categories. This category right here, highlighted in gray, is the usage rank. The usage rank means this is the number of people who have the app installed and have used it, so it's the number of sessions per those users. And we rank that sort of usage being like the total screen time that an app has within a market, this market being the US again. Now, if we look one row over, we see that the change doesn't change. Amazon is the most used app, followed by eBay, and it was the same the month before, and it was the same the month before that. So whatever happens in terms of downloads, we see that there's a lot of changes there. Some go up, some go down in terms of like sort of trending popularity and campaigns to get people to install, but the actual usage is very hard and very difficult to change, which means that you need to overinvest on those installs that you're trying to get to build a user base. And building a mobile user base is a much more difficult thing to do than a website one. The other thing that we see is, customers, you can reach customers on mobile apps, Snapchat, and Instagram. While Instagram is also on desktop, these are social channels not available on desktop and need to be a focus for marketing pretty much for any company that's within the clothing industry. If you're not on Instagram, if you're not on Snapchat, you're missing out a huge market. If we think back to like Best Buy and some of the other examples, more than half of their traffic is coming from mobile web. How can I reach these people on mobile web? It's not just Facebook like it is desktop when you talk about social. It's the Snapchats and the Instagrams as well. The other thing you can do is you can pick the perfect time. We know when the screen time is happening. We can see, here for the ASOS app, the people actually, around 10 o'clock at night is the peak time that people are opening up the app. And we can even understand, when's the peak day to run sort of promotions. Why are people using the app on Wednesday? I'm not too sure. Maybe they're getting ready to go shopping. Maybe they're planning it out for the weekend, early Wednesday night or Thursday. But these sort of insights are going to help you optimize and maximize what I think is a very challenging thing to do, is capturing a mobile app audience. And the other way to sort of capture a mobile app audience is to get your app relevant and visible within the store through App Store optimization. So just like we need to optimize the keywords for our site, we need to optimize our app page within shopping. And what do we see here? We see that shopping list and barcode scanner are the two sort of keywords in the top 10 that aren't brand. So what does that mean? That means that if I'm building an app, if I'm Amazon, and I trust that my prices are the best, it's probably very good for me to include some sort of barcode scanner or shopping list feature, and to make sure that that's visible within my App Store page to say, hey, use my app and also build your shopping list within my app. Use the barcode scanner within my app. These are quite easy features to add to an app and will help you drive a lot more traffic through a sort of a minimal investment compared to having to play the advertising game. So that wraps up sort of the insight-driven portion of the webinar. And before we get to Q&A, I'd like to just introduce a quick new product that I'd like to take a quick minute to introduce a new product that we have, which is the SimilarWeb Custom Reports. Beyond our platform and all of these screenshots that I showed you, if you really need to dive into a site, if you need to understand what your market share is within Amazon, SimilarWeb can build you custom reports and build you the conversion and funnel analysis that you need per channel, per keyword. What is your brand market landscape? What search is going on within a site, and what is the audience doing within a site with a custom report. And if you're interested in that, please feel free to reach out to us. This is something very new that we're doing, but these custom reports will give you the insights that you need, for almost any site, and these huge marketplaces, which are really black holes for data, and help you understand, Amazon is 25% of U.S., digital shopping traffic. What's going on inside Amazon? We can build those reports to help you understand your products and how to optimize within them. So I'd just like to say thank you. If you have questions, feel free to email at the email below. And questions. Audience interest. Audience interest, I have a question about audience interest, about what it's based on. Like I said before, audience interest is based on the browsing sessions that have an overlap with the browsing session of the site that you're looking at. So if I'm looking at Nike.com, what are the other websites that people are looking at within that same browsing session, which means what are those other tabs they're opening, or where are they going to and coming back to Nike? That's what audience interest is. If people are having a hard time if they're looking at smaller sites where there might not be so much audience overlap, then I highly recommend using similar sites if there's customers out there. It's another way where we've added more data points to give you a deeper view of the competitive landscape. Another question is affinity. Affinity is just like the measurement of overlap, and it actually varies between the different the audience interest and the similar sites. If you're curious to what the actual definition of affinity is for each one of those, there's a tooltip there that will give you the exact definition. And if that's it, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. If you have questions, feel free to continue to send them by email. If you like additional information, we have loads and loads of industry analysis reports. Please check out our website or our blog. We're constantly posting new market information there. And I would like to wish everybody a good day.